Module 5, Tutorial B, we're going to code a goofy comparison. And now the whole thing is you'd probably use vibe coding to help you do this. You probably have to go back and forth with it a bunch of times. So I'm not really going to teach you the code. We're going to cut and paste it, but I just want to bring some things to your attention that you should be thinking about when you're building something like this, right? So we are going to, create just a new, we'll eventually cut and paste it into Tilda. But let's make ourselves a new folder. Let's call it, call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it Condor, right? I'm going to open that in good old VS Code. I'm going to make a new file. I'm going to call it index.html. Give that a second to deal with itself. And here, we're going to cut and paste this. Actually, I'm going to move this styles into the body, and I'll do that on this page when I put in the YouTube video that I'm recording right now. Oh, man, I hate these things. I wish I could get those to stop coming up. Okay, right there. And again, I'm going to just grab those and throw those in the body because, again, we're going to paste this all into it. Just makes it easier so I don't accidentally grab that tag, right? Because that could screw up our page hardcore, right? All right, that's nothing. Well, let's go live too so we can watch it build, right? There we go. We got nothing, right? So back to our page here. Oh my God, I got too many stuffs open here. Which page is it? That one? Great. Let's kill all these things really quickly. Okay. So let's, I've already written this and tested it, right? So, here's all the CSS that you will need for it. So let's just grab that. Now, one thing I'll point out, it's getting to the end of the semester, but we should always be namespacing our CSS and our code so that we don't clash when we go pasting it in Tilda, right? In case you don't remember that fact. Save that. Obviously, nothing will be seen yet. And then, we're going to set up our area. So this area, we just have like a header that, talks about, introduces the project. Then this is where we're going to build everything. So this SVG overlay, this is actually going to be where we build our little line. The image is our actual Condor image, right? So let's copy that. Let's go paste it in where it belongs, right? So we see here we have a little, put it right there. We'll save that. Now we need our Condor image, right? So if you go and download from icon, our tutorial assets, right? So where we add engagement, and I will just simply, put that also in there. Look at my beautiful AI generated Condor, boo AI. Anyway, save, go back to my page, check it out. There we go. That's what we've got. This is going to be where we compare, we let a person put in their height and compare how big are they compared to a California condor, right? Which has a 9.5-foot wingspan. That's pretty big, right? So working ourselves down the page, we will, the next thing we have to do is, we have to get that input. And what kind of input? Well, we could do a slider. We definitely could do a slider. But I want to show you just an input, okay? So, first of all, this whole thing is wrapped in a form. A form, is something that we use an HTML element to add, for user input, Use forms all the time. Social media, anytime you make a post, that's a form. All these things are form. And these particular forms we're putting in here are numeric text fields, so numeric inputs. Again, like I said, we could have just done a slider, but I'm doing this purposely because of error checking, and we're going to talk about error checking in a second. So let's grab this, and you see it, we're going to paste it inside of our panel, but before the stage, right? So let's go over here, and I'm making you do this piece by piece because I just want you to just think about it, right? So let's give ourselves some space. Let's paste that there, right? And we see this little form here. Now when we go back to our page, we see we get a little form. Now let me point out how this would work. Now if it was a slider, we would always have a number, right? Now I could try typing letters, but because I turned the type to number, it absolutely won't, right? If we put text here, we see we would be able to type text, also numbers, right? Because numbers can be just text too. but we want it to be a number. Then we have this minimum and maximum, right? How high will I let you get these numbers? And it's kind of a lie in this type of input, right? Because if I just use this, right, these little auto, like kind of the inside the browser defaults will let you do this. But look, I can grab this and put 888, right? So later on, we're going to have to do some error checking, right? We have to make sure that we don't let someone put in something crazy that's not going to work and break our interactive. Okay, so the next thing. All right, so again, let's talk about feedback. We want to have some feedback, but we also want what's called a blank state. So when we have a place for feedback or a place where we're going to populate, we generally want to make a blank state. And blank state actually doesn't mean to leave it blank. It actually means blank as if your user hasn't put in anything, right? So think about the last time you downloaded an app and it was like, oh, you haven't done this yet, right? That's a blank state. So we'll grab this, and our blank state is just going to simply be enter a height. It's going to be kind of the instructions right here, right? But later on, when someone actually enters our thing here, it will populate, right? Enters their height. So I'm going to put it below my form. So there we go. Once again, if we just look at it, right, it says enter your height to bin the comparison. All right, working ourselves down the page a little more, right? Well, now we need to do something to add this SVG. And I don't know why this was broken up this way. I should have broken it up a different way, but this is part of the SVG. I should have just moved that whole SVG together. It's too late now. I'm just going to roll with it, right? So if we find our SVG, you'll see this SVG here. Let's put this right inside there, right? So remember, SVG looks a lot like, we've used SVG before, right? Looks a lot like HTML, kind of works like HTML, so we can just cut and paste it in, hit save, and we go back to it. We're not going to see anything because right now, none of those things have any real width or anything. Those are just setting us up for being able to map then our size of our bird here, right, to the size of the SVG, right? So this is a little bit of funky footwork going on if you really care about how this was coded, right? This is a raster image, and then over it is that SVG. That's why it's called SVG overlay. And you remember, we can like put things, we can make them responsive really easily. So this makes it easy so that no matter what size screen we're looking at, it goes ahead and works, right? Okay, so coming down. Now we got to start writing our JavaScript. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to grab a bunch of the things on the page and save those as variables called constants, because they're always going to be these items on the page. There's also this constant, which you really think of as a constant, like in math and stuff, right? We have like, how many inches is a condor, right? 9.5 times 12. Now this is, right, this is what's called this is a more modern way of writing functions without the word function. Basically, it's just called, I forget what's called, arrow method or whatever. This is basically, this is where we're going to work. But then this, right, the way we have this particular parentheses here and this right here actually makes it call that function as soon as the page runs, right? So let's copy that and let's go in here and we find our script tags. And so I'm going to give myself some space, right? And that's where I'm going to put that. And I always like to clean up my tabbing just a little bit here because, right, these two are this is going to be important here, right? Because this line is going to have to be last. We're going to put everything inside this. So while we're here, let's give ourselves some space so we don't screw up anything else, right? All right. So now we're going to write some functions, and we're going to write them a little bit the old way, right, with the real function, just regular function. Because we're going to name them and everything, and I don't know, we can do it. There's multiple ways to do things, right? So we're going to go ahead, and this is going to be our blank state function. Basically, this is going to bring us back to the blank state at times. Let's just copy it and paste it right in here. Fix that, right? So what it's going to do is when we have to blank state, it'll hide those bars. It'll make sure the message is that? Where's that message? Well, we're going to have to define that in a moment. But that's a little out of order here as far as I'm concerned. Where's that right there? Yeah, that's okay. Let's just leave that be for now. The next thing is, right, okay, here's where we're going to actually use that function right here, right? So this is if someone doesn't set both fields, right? This is, we're going to change the message in the blank state if it's not the right size. So this is where we're really limiting, we're checking for errors in a lot of ways, right? We're making sure that we have both values entered in. So let's enter that, right? This is our new function. That's where this is going to be called, right? I forgot. I took some time off between writing this and then recording this. So here we go. This is the function update comparison. So if we see now, what's happening here too is like we're asking like, hey, if you don't enter both fields, it tells us to enter both fields. If you enter something weird, right, it tells you to enter feet and inches. If you enter something beyond, it tells you, well, you're only allowed to use these values, right? So now we can go check that error checking, right? So if I put 999, I hit compare, well, it didn't do anything, right? 999, 999, compare. It actually didn't do anything. Why? We actually didn't put this, connect it to it. So you notice it's not doing anything. It's just sending this to here. So we don't want that. So we're going to have to keep building this to actually test this. So once they, as long as they kind of get past that part of the function, we're going to add this where we actually start trying to figure out stuff. Again, we're going to do one more thing where it's like, hey, if the total inches that they entered when we add the feet and inches together, again, here's another error, and we have to return. So you'll also see these returns. Like, again, if you want to learn about coding, basically when you hit return, you exit a function and don't continue running it. But anyhow, let's take this and let's put it inside. Now we have to put it inside this function here. So right, this is the end of this. So make sure you don't just put it here. Let's give ourselves some space, plug that in. Again, I want to be able to make sure I see the indentation so I know what's going on, making sure we're inside update comparison. Again, it's not going to work till we finish the whole thing. And then this last thing is building, if we've gotten through all of that, we're going to do the math to make our bar relative to the condor image. And that's what all of this is doing, right? We have things like math functions and things like that, right? You just see little math functions. That's all that is, right? So let's copy that. And again, this is going inside this update comparison. This is all part of the same function, that we're building here called update comparison. We'll save it. And then the last thing we put inside that is, well, okay, let's actually kind of have a result, and we're going to put it in something we put in our HTML. This is some feedback. So again, this is going inside update comparison. Watch that you don't accidentally put it outside of it, right? And so here's this. So this is a new thing if you've never seen this in JavaScript, right? It's I forget what these are called. Templates, right? So if we do these tick marks, then we can just kind of write normal stuff. We can intertwine other JavaScript variables in it with this $sign stuff. Again, don't worry about this if you don't want to learn coding, but you should know it a little bit because, again, even if you're vibe coding, you kind of have to be able to understand what's going on. Like I could sit here and read this whole entire function and kind of say it in normal English. It's like literally just, they call them programming languages because it's a lot like translation, right? All right, so now we've got our full update comparison built, right? And we know kind of what each section does. I talked through that a little bit. I know a little wonkily and quickly. So what do we have to do? Well, now we have to trigger that calculation. And so what we're going to do is actually add a listener event. So in JavaScript, a listener event is basically this thing that like you're just you take your form, which remember we already said form here. We have this constant form, right? So that's our Condor form. And we're just going to listen for when someone submits it, right? So we see the event is listen. And when it submits, right, it actually passes this kind of object into this function. And so the first thing we say is, well, don't let the form do what it should normally do. So a lot of times when you do a form, there's like this thing called a post, a get method, and it'll go to a different page. We're not going to do that. We're going to stay on this page, and that's what that does. And then we're going to run that function that we just did where we check that there's no errors. We see that there's, that everything's good, and we then build our comparison. We're also just going to call this thing right away just to like kind of bring it to where it's at, right? Just in case, I don't know, there was any kind of like the page refreshed and there was already data in it. So I'm going to copy that. This goes outside of that function, right? We want to be outside of that function. This is its own kind of little function going on here, right? And so that's the way that should look. And that's it, right? So now when we check our thing here, right? I am 5. I say 9, but I think I'm actually 5'8". I don't know. And there it is. So there is my height against my fake height against California Condor. They're pretty frickin' big, right? They're 9.5 feet. So I mean, it's interesting. Is it the best in the world? No, but we just needed to have something for our tutorial. Again, let's test it. Always like test things. So I'm going to say 9, right? 9 foot 6 inches is 9.5 feet, right? So my height is 100%. Our line looks like it's 100%. Again, that's great. My height is 999 feet. I'm going to compare. It says nope. Enter that, right? So you just want to make sure you test it and see that it's all sound as a pound. So the last thing we're going to do is move it into tilde. Now, for our image, right, we could put it up on GitHub and serve it that way, but tilde hosts our image for us. So you can just upload your image to tilde. I think we covered this in an earlier tutorial in the semester, but I already did it, right? And we're all working on the same website. So here's our actual thing for that. So let's just grab everything from our bottom script tag to our top style tag. Ooh, all the way up here. There we go. Copy. We'll jump into good old tilde. Find your tutorial page. Let's add ourselves a HTML block. Let's edit the content. We'll paste it in, and then we'll go real quick, grab that link from our web page and fix our link to our image so it actually works. There it is right there. And we'll go, whoops, where are we going here? We're going into our tilde page. We'll look for that image, right? It's in the HTML. There it is, source, right? By now, hopefully you know this stuff. Source, HTTP, blah, blah, blah. Save, publish. And then we check her out. I forgot to center it. Oh, it's already, you know what? The code already has centering on it. I forgot. So that's good. Yeah, and that's it. That is our thing. And now it should work, right? 5, and let's use my true, probably 5'8". There it is. That is how big I am in a court. If I stood next to a California, or I laid down next to a California condor spreading its wings, right? That is my comparison to see how big a California condor is. And that is the tutorial.